Are you still getting denied for ARCs on NetGalley? It's not your reading that's the problem. Your profile might be the culprit. Let's fix it so you can actually get the ARCs that you're requesting. If you're new here, my name is Vanessa, also known as Read with Dr. B. I am an avid reader and I frequently use NetGalley almost on a daily basis. I've been approved for hundreds of books, including books from a lot of popular publishers such as Berkeley, Tor, Avon, Atria, just to name a few. If you're new here and you have no idea what an ARC is, an ARC stands for Advanced Reader Copy, or ARC. There's also an ALC, which is Advanced Listening Copy, where it's basically getting the audiobook ahead of time. If you're looking for more of a basic video, let me link one up in the cards above for you. I recommend that you check that out first because I go over a lot of the basics about NetGalley, some tips and tricks, just so you can kind of get the lingo down. This particular video is going to be a little bit more focused on how to improve your NetGalley profile so that you can get the books that you're requesting. So let's dive into why your profile actually matters. I do want to preface this with I am a social media reviewer on NetGalley. What that means is I'm not a librarian or a bookseller, so the types of information that I have for you in this video is going to be a lot different than those types of reviewers. So a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about specifically are going to be what has worked for me. What works for me is not going to work for everybody, but I'm someone who puts a lot of effort into my social media presence, and I do believe this is why I get a lot more approvals. So when it comes to requesting books on NetGalley, yes, your feedback ratio is super important, but it's not the only thing that is going to get you approved for ARCs. And here's how I know why. I have a feedback ratio that is below the recommended 80%, and I still get approved for a lot of the new releases that are coming out. A lot of times publishers are not just looking at that feedback ratio, but they're looking at your profile, your bio, to get an understanding of who you are as a reader. They're looking for reliability, consistency, and someone who aligns with their target audience for the book that they're trying to sell and market. So even if you're a new reviewer, a strong profile can really boost your approval chances. So let's say you have 10 books that you've requested and you've reviewed 5, your feedback ratio is 50% at the moment. That is not necessarily going to deter a publisher from wanting to give you a book, but your bio is probably going to sell them on why they should give you more ARCs. Think of your profile as almost like a resume. Why should this publisher give you this free book? I actually want to show you guys something that maybe you had no idea existed, but NetGalley actually puts out blog information about what you should put into your NetGalley profile. So NetGalley actually has this really cool blog post that lists 10 things you should include in your NetGalley profile. Some of them I feel like are tips that could have been combined, but I'm going to go through several of them that I really think are important to include in your profile. Number 1, you should have a profile picture. So a picture on your profile should show off who you are. Maybe you have a very vibrant personality, you're very bubbly, you're very outgoing. NetGalley's blog also talks about if you don't feel comfortable having maybe your actual face as the profile picture, you can maybe utilize Canva or some other free design software to insert a logo or some sort of creative design that might still show off your personality. Obviously, your profile should have what type of reviewer you are. So are you a book trade professional? Are you a bookseller, an educator, a journalist, a member of the media, a librarian, or are you a reviewer? And like I said before, my profile is set to reviewer. You also want to make sure that you're connecting your social links to your profile. So do you frequently post your reviews to YouTube or Instagram like I might do? Are you creating TikToks? Are you only reviewing on Goodreads or Storygraph? Or potentially are you reviewing on a lot of the bookseller outlets, for example, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Audible, etc. So you definitely want to have those linked so that they can go see your history, which is kind of like your portfolio in some ways. Sometimes what I will do is I will actually link what I might be actively working on, so that way the publishers can see, oh yes, we should give this person more books to help them with their video. For example, I'm doing NetGalley November at the moment, and I put at the top of my profile, currently co-hosting NetGalley November. I put the announcement video with the link, and then I put my actual TBR, so that way they can see that I'm talking about these books. I may not be reading them immediately, but I am talking about these books and maybe bringing a little bit more focus to NetGalley, bringing more readers in so that NetGalley can continue to function as it's designed to function. Now let's get into some of the more fun details about your profile. So list relevant bookish facts. Do you run a book club? Are you a member of any author street teams? Do you host any online reading events? Your bio is the perfect place to showcase this stuff. So for example, a lot of the things that I put in mine are that, again, I'm co-hosting NetGalley November. I am a street team member of Stasia Stark, Eva Chase, Casso Shire. I put in information about recent influencer opportunities that I've gotten, such as Books, Gowns, and Crowns and Villains and Vixens. Anything like that to make you really stand out and help them see, yes, this person is going to broadcast my book to lots of people, so that way we can get more eyes on this book for this author, which is ultimately the goal of NetGalley, getting eyes on books. You can also include important stats about your platforms, such as Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever you happen to use. For example, the things that I put on my profile are my current YouTube subscriber count, my views over the last 28 days, and my watch time over the last 28 days. I feel like over the last month is a good time frame for them to look back at and say, yeah, that's pretty recent. We're seeing, a really good return in views, and we can really use this creator or this influencer to get eyes on a particular book. And as I had mentioned earlier, I spend a lot of time on NetGalley. I'm probably checking it every day. That means that I often go in and I update my profile to that specific day. So I'll even update my stats when I'm in there. I probably update my stats about once a week, but some of the other things I change here and there, for example, I'll change the date and I'll change maybe how many books that I've read, which are other stats and stuff that you can add. So like I put my Goodreads goal of 100 books for the year, but I've read over 200 at this point, and I just kind of keep that counter going. The blog post also talks about you including maybe some of your favorite authors. So by sharing about some of your favorite authors, that might help publishers get a better understanding of the types of books that you like to read. They recommend sticking to about 3 to 5 authors. You can also swap out authors for potentially tropes. So I put a bunch of tropes in mine instead. Sometimes an author is like hit or miss, where I have one book that really worked for me, but then another one that just really didn't hit. I like to put tropes instead. So for example, I talk about the genres that I primarily read, which are romance and kind of all of the offshoots of romance. I read some fantasy, some mystery thriller, and some horror. And then I also talk about really enjoying things like books with BIPOC characters or by BIPOC authors. I really like books with mental health representation. And then the tropes that I like are enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine, forced proximity. So it's giving them a little bit more of an idea of who I am versus just saying I like to read romance. There's a lot more depth when I say I like to read romance, especially dark romance, sports romance, fantasy romance, and romantasy, and these are the particular tropes that I like. So yes, approve me for these books with these specific tropes. So speaking of some of the tropes and genres, you might also want to include what kind of categories. So you can actually go in and select, I want to read books that are mangas, graphic novels, romance books, cookbooks. You can put all the different categories that you're interested in, which also means you don't necessarily need to put those categories in the bio section of your profile. There's also a section where you can include your reading habits. So are you someone who reads maybe more physically or digitally or audiobooks? That can also help publishers gauge whether they should give you an audiobook versus a ebook. So at this point in my life, I would say I'm very much more an audiobook listener than I am a digital ARC reader. I just don't have the time to sit down and read books like I used to. So I'm often listening while I'm on the go or while I'm multitasking or whatever. And then I go back and I write my reviews. So let's take a look at my profile so you can see what I use to help myself get ARCs. So at the top of my profile, you can see that I'm currently co-hosting NetGalley November. Check out the announcement video and my TBR video. And I link both of these things. So announcement video, my TBR video. Then I go into my social media stats. I list my YouTube, my subscriber count, my views, and my watch time over the last 28 days. And I also do the same for Instagram because these are the two that I use most frequently. I put some really cool information here about being a Villains and Vixens and Books, Gowns, and Crowns influencer for 2026, street team member for Stasia Stark, Eva Chase, Casso Shire, as well as PR companies that I'm on the influencer team for, such as Valentine PR and Luna Literary Management, and then the auto-approved publishers through NetGalley. So right now I'm auto-approved for Blackstone Publishing Audiobooks and bookbuzz.net. And then I kind of go into a traditional profile. So I really want them up here to see, like, look at all this cool stuff. I'm an influencer, I'm a content creator, here's why you should give your book to me. Then, like I said, I go into more of the traditional profile kinds of things. So my name is Vanessa. I'm from Maryland in the US. I enjoy reading all kinds of books, but tend to pick up romance, and I've bolded this, especially dark romances and contemporary romances with enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine, and forced proximity tropes. I also like fantasy and mystery thriller, and I've found myself enjoying horror and coming of age fiction stories lately. So really letting these genres just pop out to be like, yes, I want to read these, that's why I'm requesting them. I would also love reading books by BIPOC authors, underrepresented communities, and mental health topics. I would like to be considered for book approval because I have a unique perspective on reading, especially being a BIPOC woman with a mental health background. I'm interested in promoting these areas and breaking any stigma associated with mental health. Kind of part of the reason why I started my channel. Anytime there's a book about mental health, I'm often talking about the mental health of it as a psychologist. I'm also one of the co-owners for the Host for Prose book club, and I link the Instagram there, where we read a variety of genres from new releases to backlist titles. We also host author events such as Pango, Dawn Darling, and Latrexa Nova, week-long and weekend challenges, and mini readathons. I primarily post reviews on Goodreads and Storygraph. I often feature books on my YouTube channel as well, where I can easily yap in long form about books, including book hauls, reviews, vlogs, wrap-ups, and reading sprints. On Instagram, I typically share trope graphics, reviews and ratings, author events and signings, and my experience at book conventions. Then I list my 2025 reading goal, which was 100 books, and where I'm currently at is at 208. So that is my NetGalley profile. This is what I believe helps me get really popular titles. Now I will say I don't get approved for every single book ever, but I would say that probably 80 to 85% of the time I'm getting the books that I request. So since I have changed my profile to be more of this structure and putting more of the things in that NetGalley is suggesting on their blog posting, I have seen that I've gotten more of the books that I've requested. So feel free to use my profile as inspiration, but make sure that you are personalizing your profile so that it reflects your voice and your reading style. Use this as a guide, not a template. Your unique style is what publishers want to see. If you have any tips or advice that helps you boost your profile, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what has worked for you, or maybe even what you found didn't work for you, and maybe you changed it so that way your profile reflected you a little bit better. As always, I want to thank you for clicking on today's video and watching it all the way through. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!